Leonard. Pull-up jumper. It's good. Kawhi Leonard. 5 to shoot. Leonard, step back 3. Bang! Back to Leonard. Shot clock at 6. Leonard, step back 3. Puts it in. He does it again. The lead is 8 with 1:40 remaining.
Kawhi Leonard obviously is the two-time Finals MVP. What can you say about his performance and his difficult to close out a team that has him?
I mean, he destroyed us. That's what it is. He had a hell of a game. That's what, he does. It was a hell of a game.
Can we discuss how unique this entire series has been for the Dallas Mavericks and the Los Angeles Clippers? I don't think I've ever seen a series played where the away team seems to have won each and every game. I don't know if the Dallas Mavericks and Los Angeles Clippers are horrific home teams or just really good teams on the road. And that led all the way up to this pivotal Game 7. And the way the Los Angeles Clippers got here was a little bit different than how they got here last year. Last year, they were up 3-1 against the Denver Nuggets in a grueling series that eventually saw them lose. And this year, it seems like they were trading games with Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks, which is a team that they faced in the first round last year. So what's going on, guys? Your boy Mike here. I just wanted to give my podcast a quick shout out, guys. I'm sure you guys know of it. Laced Up. I'm going to leave it in the pinned comment in the comment section down below. And I'm giving away a pair of Apple AirPod Max to anyone that follows me on Instagram. Now that we got all that out of the way, cue the intro. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? So Game 7, we already know what's on the line. One of these teams is going home, and one of these teams are going to make it past this round in order to face off against the Utah Jazz, which, by the way, are getting a ton of rest right now as a result of this Game 7, which is good because I feel like Donovan Mitchell came back from his injury a little prematurely, so at least he can get a little bit of rest, but I digress. For Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks, the Los Angeles Clippers essentially represent the biggest obstacle that was in his career thus far. It's a team that have always held him back from getting to the next round, and obviously this is only his second playoff run, but last year he got bounced by the Clippers. This year he faces the Clippers once again in the first round. It's very similar to what LeBron James experienced with the Boston Celtics during his first stint with the Cleveland Cavaliers circa 2008 and 2009 before he went to the Miami Heat. This was a team that really held LeBron back. It was a team that he couldn't beat on that original Cleveland Cavaliers team, but that's a team that had players like Mo Williams, Shaq, Delonte West, etc., etc. So that's what the Clippers represent for Luka Doncic. Meanwhile, on the Los Angeles Clippers end, there's so much at stake here because we've discussed in the past that this is as good as the Clippers can get. Paul George, you traded 7 first-round picks for him, and you signed him to a contract extension for the next 5 years. You're locked into Paul George. Marcus Morris, you traded for him last year. You extended him, giving him $16 million a year for 4 years. And then you trade for Luke Kennard and then give him the same exact contract, although he hasn't been that crazy of a valuable contributor for you guys thus far. The Clippers were actually so desperate to fill a position of need that they traded a player that took a pay cut for them in Lou Williams for Rajon Rondo at the trade deadline. And that's not to say that the Clippers are horrible people, but it's to say that that's how desperate things are for the Clippers right now. They are strapped as much as they can. They can't get any better than this. And if they lose in the first round, what does that convey to Kawhi Leonard? This is a guy that came to the Clippers so he could return back home to Los Angeles, but if the Clippers are this horrible, is there a chance that he opts out of his contract this year and hits free agency and maybe signs with another team, or maybe they execute a sign and trade with a team like the Heat or the Warriors? I don't know. It could happen. I don't think it's going to happen, but there are some things at stake here for both teams. With all of that being said and the stage being set, smack that like button for the YouTube algorithm and let's get to this game breakdown, because the very first quarter was very typical of what we've been seeing from these games so far. Luka Doncic came out swinging in the first quarter, only missing 2 of his shots, going 6 of 8 from the field, making 3 out of his 4 3-pointers, which is 75% from 3, for a scorching hot 19 points to put the Dallas Mavericks up 38-35 after the first quarter. A huge storyline for me personally is how Kristaps Porzingis has essentially become a 7'3" maxed out Kyle Kuzma for the Dallas Mavericks, and this isn't consistent with his role last year. If you guys remembered last year, Kristaps Porzingis was a huge contributor in that series against the Los Angeles Clippers. So I don't know what's been slowing him down. I don't know if it's the injuries this year, but one of the biggest storylines, at least for me, and something that's always gotten me scratching my head in these games, is what is going on with Porzingis. If you have any theories, let me know in the comment section down below. He might be a poor schematic fit. Maybe it's his injuries. I'm really not sure. It's going to take some more time for us to further evaluate this. As for the Los Angeles Clippers in the first quarter, Kawhi Leonard was absolutely on fire, going for 5 of 6 from the field, scoring 13 points, only missing 1 of his shots, that being a 3-pointer, whereas Paul George went 1 for 3 from the field for only 2 points. But the good news is the Clippers got a ton of help from their role players in the form of Marcus Morris and Nicholas Batum, whereas the Dallas Mavericks haven't really been getting as much help from their role players as Luka Doncic would have liked. The second quarter saw the Los Angeles Clippers pull away 78-62. The primary reason for this being Paul George came to life, while Kawhi Leonard was able to take a bit of a step back. As a matter of fact, in that entire second quarter, Kawhi Leonard only shot 1 time and was only in for a total of 6 minutes, whereas Paul George was in for a bulk of the second quarter, and he made his presence known. But the real story in that quarter was, once again, the Los Angeles Clippers' depth paid off huge because they got contributions from Marcus Morris, Reggie Jackson, and probably the biggest contributor of that second quarter is Mama, there goes Terrence Mann, going 5 of 7 from the field for a total of 13 points and absolutely perfect from 3. Things would really unravel for the Dallas Mavericks in that second half, as the Los Angeles Clippers saw huge contributions from Marcus Morris, and at least from the perspective of a NBA fan, the Los Angeles Clippers looked like a complete team. They had a big game from their key contributors, whereas the Dallas Mavericks were just ice cold in response. Luka Doncic was doing almost everything he could, but if you paid attention to his first couple of games, he usually catches fire in the first quarter and the second quarter, and typically gets extremely fatigued in the second half, the worst being in the fourth quarter. So that's typically when you'd want to see a huge contribution from like Tim Hardaway Jr., Dorian Finney-Smith, and to their credit, they both hit double digits, but their shooting percentages were just not it. Their plus minuses didn't look so great. Tim Hardaway Jr.'s plus minus didn't look so great. Maxi Kleber didn't even scratch. It seemed like Luka Doncic did almost everything that he could to put these Dallas Mavericks in a position to win, but I believe it's time that we really discuss the real reason why the Dallas Mavericks can't beat the Los Angeles Clippers. And before we get to that, we got to give the Clippers their due diligence, especially because I'm a Laker fan. I'm sure a lot of Clipper fans that are watching this are just waiting for this moment where I say the Clippers are a better team, and they are. They're a significantly better team. I really didn't buy it when Paul George came out and said, hey, this year is going to be a significantly more improved year for me. I was very depressed in the pandemic bubble. I didn't really take them seriously. I did not. And they were a pleasant surprise. They played remarkable team basketball. They weren't overly dependent on Kawhi Leonard or Paul George. As a matter of fact, it seemed like each and every player made a major contribution in this game. Whereas if you watch the Dallas Mavericks, it just seemed like the brunt of everything just fell on the shoulders of Luka Doncic. Kristaps Porzingis doesn't play like he's a second star, and he's getting paid second star money. And I just think the Dallas Mavericks do have something special in Luka Doncic. Obviously, this is a guy that's potentially the future of our league, but the problem is the pieces around him are just horrible. It reminds me of literally the 2007 Cleveland Cavaliers. The fact that Boban Marjanovic played 25 minutes in this game, in a major playoff game, made me a little uncomfortable. The fact that you live and die based off of Tim Hardaway Jr.'s ability to catch fire is also uncomfortable. Tim Hardaway Jr. is a great piece, and he definitely has a place on the Dallas Mavericks, but Luka needs someone that he could depend on when he begins to get tired or whenever his shot isn't falling. You can't expect him to go for nearly 50 or 60 points in order to win games for you. Going into this offseason, I'd want the Dallas Mavericks to focus on getting either a second star for Luka Doncic or more two-way players for Luka Doncic. If I'm Luka Doncic, then I want to focus on my conditioning, because you have to admit, when you watch this man play in the second half of games, when you see him bring the ball up court, you can tell that he's just gassed. He's just tired. And the only thing that's going to hold him back from this point and on is probably his conditioning. And to be honest, like, the fact that this man dropped over 14 assists and 40 points in a playoff game against the Clippers despite having shoddy conditioning is terrifying, to say the least. Also willing to give Luka a pass because, well, we were in the midst of a pandemic, so off-season training may have been a little bit more difficult. But needless to say, this was a phenomenal series between these two rivals. One day it will be Luka's time to take the next step, but for now, the Dallas Mavericks are eliminated from the NBA playoffs, while the Clippers go on to take on the #1 seed in the West. Let me know what you guys think about all this. If you want to talk to me about this further, I have a Discord chat in the description down below. The link is in the description if you guys want to come and talk some basketball. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.